Okay, all right. Thank you, because I do want this recorded because what's going to happen is
Uh-oh.
Oh, lost you, Joellen. And since we lost you, you can't hear me say, we lost you, Joellen.
It's spiritual. She feels it, Sam.
Come back, Joellen.
Not back yet.
Huh. Well,
Hmm.
Emily, make sure you capture that in the minutes that she disappeared on us.
We lost her. Here's Chris. I can call her, or do you want to give her a few more minutes?
yeah, let's give her a couple of minutes.
Okay.
Sonia, I'm going to do a post for Front Porch Forum about the school budget.
Yeah.
And I want to make sure, I know I have the facts about homelessness correct because that's coming from Chris.
Right.
Is there an easy place for me to look up statistics about like how many kids get speech therapy, how many kids get free lunch?
There's not necessarily a place for free and reduced lunch, but there are, I think, not in our last packet, not this past week, not this week, but maybe the meeting before. I'm trying to remember. There was a special ed,
I remember what meeting, Sam. I can send you that.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. That'd be great.
And
Thanks
it
for
Yeah.
doing that.
it breaks it down, the whole,
Yeah.
all the special ed students, and yeah, that might be helpful. Thanks, Emily.
Yeah, I'll send it to you after the meeting.
Joellen.
button. And I disappeared. I'm so sorry. Well, hello, Chris. So I don't know what happened while I was gone, but unless there is an objection, could we each introduce ourselves so that Frederick knows who we are? Is that okay? And we'll just go around starting in my circle of vision. It's Sam first.
I'm Sam Stockwell. I'm a Ward 3 counselor.
And I'm Joellen Mulvaney, and I live on Pleasant Street, and I am the chairperson of this committee. Next is Sonia.
Hi, I'm Sonia Spalding, and I live in Berry City, and I'm actually on the school board.
Emily, you're next.
Hi, I'm Emily. I apologize. My internet is not supporting a video tonight. I live in Berrytown, and I'm also on the school board.
Rick, you're next.
Hey, Frederick, Rick Taft. I'm the staff liaison, so I'm not a voting member of the committee. I'm the HR director, the ADA coordinator, the safety officer, and probably two more roles coming up shortly that I can't talk about yet, but welcome.
Jack of all trades.
Chris, you're next.
Welcome.
Chris, you're next.
Hi everyone. Hi Frederick. My name is Chris Roberts. I live on Wellington Street in Berry City, and I am one of the initial members of this committee from the get-go.
Welcome, Greg. I'm seeing that Greg is here. Greg, would you like to introduce yourself to Frederick? He's a new person to the community and has joined us for the meeting tonight.
Oh, hang on 1 second here. Let me get organized a little bit. Let's see, we need video. There we go. Hey. Hi, I'm Greg. I am here on the committee, I guess. Is that a good introduction there or what?
That's fine. That's fine.
I just got in the door. That's why I'm a little frazzled. But
I've invited Sam Stockwell, Councillor Stockwell, as one of the cohorts, and the city has started the cohort program with the Vermont League of Cities and Towns on welcoming communities. And so Sam and I, and also Michael Deering, are the three representatives from Barre City. And we have this assignment that we'd like to share with you, because then we meet our assignment and we can get an A+. Anyway, so Sam is going to introduce the topic and also ask us the questions. And then what we'll do is, I don't necessarily want to go around in a circle, but just raise your hand when you have an idea about answering the three essential questions. And Frederick, you're welcome to join us. Don't feel like you're an outlier. I'm going to include, unless you don't want to. I mean, it's up to you. Okay? Take it away, Sam.
Okay. So as part of being this cohort, we have to pick a wicked problem. A wicked problem is a problem that's intractable. It's complicated, it's not easy, the usual stuff doesn't work to move it forward. So, and there's a pretty good article that this cohort got to read from, I think it's the Harvard Business Review, about intractable problems. So what we have to do is essentially come up with a thesis statement. And where we, like, here's the topic, here's our concerns about it, and here's what we think should happen. So we're talking about civil discourse. That civility is a problem, well, everywhere, but certainly in Barre City too. So that we agree that civil discourse is important to our work together, because without that, we can't really reasonably discuss our differences. And if that were not the case, there was a different way, if we could handle civil conversation about charged topics, we could make more progress.
Sam, I asked Rick if he could cue up that little video that we got sent, and so perhaps we should show that now. This is a little video clip about wicked problems. Can you manage that, Rick?
I'm gonna try. I've never actually played a video through a share screen before, so I'm not sure how that's all gonna play, but
I'm
we're
not
gonna give it a
sure.
shot. Let's see. Share my screen. Share. Can you guys see that?
Yep.
What? Yep, here we go.
Can you hear
Maybe
it?
close captions, because there's no sound coming.
Down. Could you go back to the beginning now that we have the text?
Jeez,
Thank you.
Joellen, you're demanding tonight.
Oh, sorry. Thanks, Rick. It's such a shame that there was no sound with that because the gentleman who is narrating has a fantastic accent. Okay, Sam, do you want to continue?
So do people have any responses to that idea? I mean, I think, there are many other wicked problems, obviously, in Barre and across the world, but that just seemed like a place to start. But other things are possible. Is that correct, Joelle?
Yeah. So really, the first question for us to discuss is what is the general issue? What is the issue of civility here in Barre City? So that's really the essential question. Would you say that was correct, Sam?
Yes.
Okay. So we'll start with that. So basically, we want to outline what the issue is. Why is civility or incivility an issue here in Barre? Anyone want to start?
Can I ask a clarifying question?
Sure.
So are we talking about just in general, like on social media, people at city council meetings, people in committee meetings, people on school board, parents in the school? Like, are we just talking about just in general? Or are we talking about specifically like government, municipal work? Or like, what are we talking about? I'm trying to get a sense of.
Okay, I would say that it's in general. This is a kind of a general idea about what is the condition of civil discourse in the city right now. And civil discourse could be the city council, it could be those formal settings, but it can also be things that we've read or noticed on social media or experiences we've had. Yeah.
I think would definitely include school board.
Oh, there's definitely a need for more civility on school board. I would definitely agree with that.
And why do you think it's, well, I guess that's the next question. Anyone else want to talk about the conditions of civil discourse in the city?
I wonder, sometimes this is something I've been thinking about in another group that I'm in. We're talking about systems of oppression and how the very systems that we're using are designed against us. And that's something that I've noticed in especially like our school board settings, where we're coming up against people who are using false information, lies, emotional language to kind of carry through and override the proceedings. Does that kind of make sense? Like, this is something that I think really goes to that piece about civility.
Mhm. Chris, do you have an idea about it?
Um, I have to confess, I'm not as involved in municipal life as I probably should be since starting my job last summer. But the conflict, so I'm not exposed to a lot of conflict, but I certainly see it, for example, on Front Porch Forum. But there, I think it is pretty civil, So I don't know where the incivility is occurring, but I would assume at school board and places like that, council meetings. I know we've had our own problem with it, this committee, but not recently. But certainly, and I think Emily touched on one of the reasons. I think a lot of incivility is generated by dishonesty. People aren't honest. They're not transparent. And so that feeds into the incivility, I think.
Yeah, good point.
Greg, do you have something to add?
Yeah, I was trying to find that little hand button again, and it just so was giving me a hard time. It's there, but yeah, I think general terms, I think transparency, like Chris was saying, and communication between people is the biggest problem when it comes to lack of civility. once people get to know each other just a little bit, and once you realize that that guy over there isn't, you know, lying to you or making stuff up or just trying to push his own personal agenda or whatever, uh, you know, then people can work with each other if you can get them to just get to know each other just a little bit. And I've found that to be true in my case. I'm, you know, I guess I'm easy to get to know or something, but it's you know, it doesn't matter what situation you're looking at or what you're discussing or, you know, as charged as it can be. Civility itself can be promoted by just getting to know that person or persons outside of the charged issue. So it's kind of like you know, having a two-pronged approach. One, get to know people, and two, bring those people together and get stuff going, get work going, get discussion going. Because everybody has good ideas, hopefully, and usually. And the best thing is to get all the good ideas and come up with one central idea that makes everyone happy and makes everyone also not happy.
So making sure that people have ways to connect and not
Yeah,
with
yeah.
each other, with
And
people they disagree with.
aside from, you know, social media, because that's a bigger problem than a solution. Um, you know, it's just what it is, and you know, before social media, people would just talk and see each other. So, you know, that's I guess the key would be to figure out how the best way to use social media these days and have it work. And good luck with that.
Sonia.
So the other thing I wanted to say that this topic is bringing up for me is just a couple of things. One, I think another important part of civility is empathy, just like recognizing like maybe this person doesn't understand things the way that you understand them because they're coming from a different place, a different background, a different, you know, maybe just having some empathy for the other person. I also think I have found that the biggest thing for me to try to be civil is a lot of self-reflection and like figuring out like why is this person pushing my buttons? Like why am I, what is it, why am I reacting this way? Because if I'm not willing to do the self-reflection and I can't be civil, then why would I expect people to be civil to me? And so I feel like that's part of the process, is recognizing the role that you're playing in the conversation.
One of the reasons that we thought this was an important topic to bring up for this kind of discussion is that, you know, I personally, well, all of us maybe, have noticed a lack of civility in a lot of instances, not just at City Council and at the school board, but on Front Porch Forum and other social media, and also, you know, other podcasts and things like that. So the next question is going to get at what we think can happen to change those things. But anyway, so Sam, you want to ask the next question? Thank you, everyone. Oh, I'm sorry. I know you've just moved to the community, Frederick, but if you had an idea about why civil engagement is important, please share.
Well, so I agree with everything that you guys have said, but in particular, Greg, where you mentioned communication, you know, a simple hello a lot of times breaks down so many walls. And you know, social media, it's not the real world. Like it's kind of become its own little space. So I'm interested in to see like, well, how do we build this out now? So we have a foundation of communication. This is how you connect people. It gets away that xenophobia and that fear, right? When you raise your hand and you see that there's no weapon there, so that person's okay. So, like, what does that look like? Does it look like for the city of Barre? Does it look like music festivals? because music is a universal language. Everybody can appeal to that. Um, I don't know, but I'm super excited about it. So I'm from Texas originally. I've been here since June, and just being here is so great because you guys are having a conversation that from the outside looking in, you've already solved it. Like in terms of empathy and what you're trying to do, you're light years ahead of where I'm from in a deep red state. So the fact that you do have this foundation of civility and you're trying to better it even now, I'm happy to be here. But I think that communication is really important, and if we can try to build some type of events or what have you to get people out of their shell and meet each other, I think Barry would be even greater than what it is.
Thank you.
Mhm.
That's pretty helpful. Good idea. So we've sort of said why it's important. So maybe we should go on to the third question.
Well, actually, to me, why it's important, and we talked about why we chose it, but to me, it's like um, not just why it's important in the general sense, but real specifically. For example, to me, if if we really want to preserve an open democracy, a participatory democracy, I think civil discourse is at the bottom of it. It's kind of the base of it. Because when people speak negatively or call each other names, or they're at meetings and people shout out at them and don't respond well, or the city council member walks out, or whatever, um, it kind of puts a chill on everyone who is witnessing this and knows about it to participate themselves. In other words, it inhibits people from wanting to step out or wanting to take leadership or wanting to speak up even. So to me, civil discourse is really about open democracy. It's a because without it, we inhibit some people from being able to express themselves and to be part of the community. That was my feeling about it and why I thought it was an important topic.
That's really well said. It's a really nice statement.
Does anyone else have an idea of why it's so important to?
I completely agree with you, Joel, and I think that being on the school board, but also seeing people who come in to participate, and then when other people come in and they're intimidated by them and the questions that they ask, or just the way their energy is in the room, it's hard to allow people to, or it's hard to make sure that we are making meetings and committees, whatever it might be, accessible to everybody when we have people who are being not, or just not being civil, basically, and intimidating. So yeah, I would 100% agree with that.
Do you want to go on to the third?
Joellen, I wanted to just add in, and
Oh,
I'm
sorry.
not sure how it all plays,
Yeah.
but when we're talking about this, there's two things that really come to mind, and they tie in with what you've said, what Emily said, what Frederick, what everybody has said. But if you don't have respect for the people that you're communicating with, it generates fear in the people that are around that group. Because if everybody in the group has got one belief and I have a different belief, but everybody is so spoken about their belief, probably, and especially if they're disrespectful to people who don't believe the same thing as them, I'm probably not going to come forward. So I think there's a level of fear that's underlying the civility in our whole society, not just Barre, but across the country. And I think it's a fear of change. It's a fear of lack of knowledge. Like Sonia mentioned earlier, somebody might not understand something. So, like what Emily had said, people start falsifying things to make themselves seem like they know more about something than they really do. And I think a lot of that's driven out of a fear of not being accepted. And that was just my take on it. I see it with my supervisors daily. they're telling people stuff that, you know, when I ask them about it, they're like, yeah, I don't know why I said that. It didn't make any sense. But in the time, they're trying to act like they've got more control and more education or whatever the case might be. And I think a lot of it's driven from what I'm seeing out of fear of people not respecting somebody because they're not on the same level as them, they're not the same race as them, they're not the same beliefs as them. So I think a lot of that for me comes back to the civility issue as well. So
I would agree that the fear is an underlying problem for a lot of folks, which does make them sort of either puff up and like, here's the real truth, and even if they're making it up. But it leads to this sort of group think where no one dares to contradict the main idea, which could be really, really wrong. And without that ability to talk about other options, people proceed on this course that is a disaster because no one feels free to disagree.
absolutely. And I mean, that's the what do they call that? There's a term for that in the psychological world, sociology world. It's where everybody does one thing because the group decides that's the best thing to do. And everybody else just kind of goes along because they're too afraid to stand up to it. I can't,
Yeah.
there's a term for it, but I can't remember what it is off the top of my head.
But also that I think Rick, that derives also from a fear of losing that protection of that group, right? So if I stand up and I
Yeah.
say, well, I don't agree with how you're treating this person, or whatever you've said to them to hurt their feelings, and then if you do that, then you yourself become a target and you're isolated. So you have to have enough self-reliance and self-sufficiency in order to stand up to that. So how we get to that point, I don't know, but I think a lot of it is just being afraid to lose the protection of that community. But if there was an
Absolutely.
alternative, I think we would have more people standing up and speaking out.
Absolutely. And you know what you mentioned earlier, Frederick, social media has given people a platform to attack people without actually having to do it face to face.
Yeah.
And so many people hide behind social media that and say things that they would never say to somebody in public or to their face. And it's scary. It's scary where it's taken us.
Mm.
And morally disgusting.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
If there are no more comments about this particular part, we could go on to the how would it be different? If we could make this different, how would things look?
Well, I'm just going to throw it out there because it happens all the time. People will stop talking over one another, period, at meetings, especially the formal meetings. I mean, it's one thing when people have a heated discussion with each other back and forth, but that's not the kind of thing that should be happening at formal meetings like city council and school board and our committee even. That's for me a bottom line. That shows just such disrespect when you talk over someone. And my culture, I'm sorry, I'm Sicilian. People talk over each other all the time. There are 1,200 conversations going on at once, and everyone knows what everyone else is talking about. But that's not the kind of culture I'm talking about here. I'm talking about a more formal kind of culture that involves people that don't act that way.
I also think not just talking over people, but also listening. I find that in meetings, people come in and they already have their minds made up instead of like, let's listen to what other people have to say. Let's take it all in. Let's decide what's going to be the best idea for the community, for, whatever the problem is. But everybody's already sort of planted their flag on, their side of the line, and that's where we're going to stay. And we're not going to think about like, well, maybe this would be a good idea. And maybe we could have come to some kind of an agreement. Instead, we're just we've already walked in with how we're gonna do it, or it feels like that sometimes, and so that's frustrating.
I think it would look like respect for the rules. These meetings are run within a rule that everyone agrees to, and having that respect to follow the rules. Rules are designed to create civil discourse. So I've noticed in meetings when the rules are not strictly enforced, if no one's willing to step up and be a strong leader and really protect the agenda, protect the meetings, that's when things really can spiral out of control and get very disrespectful.
Good point, Emily. Thanks.
Yeah, excellent point.
So I've got a quote that it's corny, but I make all of the people that I'm doing supervisor training for. At the beginning of every one of the supervisor trainings, there's a quote by Sun Tzu in The Art of War that says, seek first to understand, then be understood. And I think that comes back to what Sonia was saying. In society, we're designed to basically hear enough of what Sonia's saying to come up with my response to what Sonia's saying. I'm not listening to everything she's saying. I'm already working on my response because I can't, it's almost like I can't take a pause after what she says, think about it, because I need to be able to be quick and responsive. And I think a lot of that is causing this turbulent incivility. And I think it's causing people just stress and, like Sonia said earlier, take a moment, pause, self-reflect. Okay, did that make sense? And I'm trying to get my supervisors to understand that role, not just it's my way. It's listen, maybe they have an idea that's actually better than what you're thinking, and you might learn something. But that's one of the things I'm trying to get across to them because we're having a hard time with leadership.
I
You
think,
know,
oh, go ahead, Greg.
yeah, I was gonna say one of the things that I'm here wondering, and I've asked myself this question a lot, is where did, how did it become okay, or when did it become okay for people to be so uncivil to each other, even in a conversation? Like, like we're saying here, people talking over each other, or, you know, coming in with their minds completely made up and they just can't wait to tell everybody regardless of, what's going on. And I don't have an answer to that, but, I do kind of blame social media a little bit for that, where that face to face is not functioning in any way to make people just feel a little bit more empathetic towards each other and willing to understand and listen. Because I have seen, I remember when things, it wasn't that long ago because I'm not that old. I remember when it was just a given that you would have that level of civility. Uh, Things you learn from example, from seeing other people do it. And as far as strong leaders, that is a very important thing. To have someone who will enforce the rules and keep things going on a schedule like they should be, which kind of reinforces the fact that whatever you're talking about, see you're in a meeting or whatever, this is important. And it is also important to hear everyone and what they have to say. As many people as we can hear, we want to hear what they have to say. And you should want to hear that too. Yes, and that, I think it's a big challenge. I don't know what the answer is to that and how to move back towards that. Which again, I would say, maybe when people get to know each other, if they're even willing to get to know each other, maybe that's a start. I don't know.
I think if we were more civil, we would be more curious about how each other thinks. Therefore, we'd ask more questions of people we disagree with.
Good point. Anyone else want to weigh in before we close the conversation? Well, thanks, Sam, and thank you, everyone, because not only will this give us an A+ on our assignment, but this has been very useful in terms of how to move forward, because I have a feeling that along with our committee's recognition that we were way further away from our goal than we thought when we started, I think when we moved back, when we took a step back into community education, I thought that was a really good move. And in a way, this conversation can be the beginning of, or not the beginning, but another extension of community education, when we can bring this kind of topic to other groups, other forums, not just this one, and have people, because in a way, what you have to do to answer these questions is examine your own behavior, as Sonia pointed out. So this was very useful. And what's going to happen next is I volunteered to write up our statements around this for our assigned time, which will be, I think, the 20th, is it? Will we meet again? I think so. In any case, when I have the written document and when both Sam and Michael look at it and agree, I'll send it to everyone so that you can take a look at what we're going to submit as our conversation about this. And Frederick, if you wish, you can go on to the city's website and you can email email me, and that way I'll have your email address and then I can send that to you. And I just want you to know that everyone in the community is not only welcome at the meetings, but welcome to participate, even take on assignments, because we love giving out assignments. So you're welcome, and we're supposed to meet every second Thursday at 6:30. However, I blew it this month, and we're meeting on the 15th. Go ahead, Frederick. You're
I tried to send the email through the chat. I don't know if it went through.
It did. I can see it.
Okay. Awesome.
pick it up there.
Okay.
Thanks. Any other comments or anything else to say this evening? Because
I have an update.
Please, Emily.
Sorry to interrupt you.
Oh,
I just wanted to give, I love to do that, Joellen.
I
I wanted to give the committee an update about the, about Juan's writing for the high school newspaper. Greg and I are co-editing together. So we heard from Juan last week, and he gave us a piece of writing that introduced the committee to the school body through their newsletter. It was very enthusiastic. We had a great editing discussion, and we're really looking forward to see where Juan goes with this in the future. He said he wants to write 2 pieces a month, so we'll see where he goes.
That's great.
That is wonderful. I'm very grateful to you both for taking this on. That's good. Thanks.
Can I ask a question? Because I'm fairly new to committee work. And maybe Rick knows the answer better, or maybe Sam knows the answer better. Because I was trying to explain to my husband about committees, and he's like, well, what do you do? And but the question is, like, when I think about school board committees, like I think about, I'm on finance and we make a recommendation to the board about here's our recommendation, and the board, in theory, would take the recommendation and say, oh, the finance committee's really thought about this and we're going to adopt this budget or whatever it might be. Policy committee will recommend a policy. How do the committees work for the city? Because it doesn't feel like that same thing is happening. Could someone enlighten me about that?
Well, committees do have a charge. Like the cow pasture committee has a very concrete charge, maintain it and make it better. So they'll come to council and say, we are going to go for a grant that's going to extend the land.
Okay.
But most of the committees, and Rick probably knows better than I do because he's probably spends more time with them. You know, the charge varies and the degree of involvement and engagement varies. You know, like the planning commission is very focused.
Right.
Design review, very focused. Probably other committees that I know of are a little less focused. And it's hard, I think, without a really direct charge. That's really a smart goal to know where you're headed or to herd people that way.
Well, but if we, I mean, I would think the city council would give us our charge, right?
Well,
Well,
in the history of this particular committee, okay, because it's a good example of not getting a charge. The goal for this committee from the council was to create a flag policy so that the community would be able to fly a Black Lives Matter flag. That's what really the genesis of this committee was, and we did not get very much direction, except our charge is to, in very general terms, make the city a more welcoming place for diversity, something along those lines, which is pretty wide open, and it does not give specific, because let's be frank about it, us too, we didn't know how to do that. How do we do that? So in a way, our committee is a more experimental one, I think, where we're experimenting with different ways to engage the community in the conversations around diversity and equity and justice and that sort of thing. We did have a couple of charges that we really can't do unless we have some professional help, which has been my carrying cry the whole time. Things that involve way more intense labor than this little committee of volunteers can do. So yeah, so this is kind of the preamble. I see it. Our committee is a preamble to a much larger effort that would involve maybe a line item in our budget, maybe some professional help beyond Christy, who can help us, make a larger plan. And I think that the cohort project that this questionnaire is from is a part of that. And I think it's just going to take a long time. And in this case, I think the charge is going to come from us to, the way it's been happening is we bring things to the council and then they can decide one way or the other whether they're going to proceed and things. Is that, would you agree with that, Sam, pretty much?
I think various councils, various committees have started all over the place. And some the more concrete the objective, the easier it is. But some of them they're just not at that place yet. They're really like this committee where they're still figuring out, like, how do we do this work? What is this work and what do we need? Chris has his hand up.
Your microphone's up.
I was just gonna say, Joellen gave a good summary of what our charge was initially. It's been vague or more vague the past couple of years, but I think given the current political and cultural climate, not just here in Barre or in Vermont, but nationally, the fact that we just exist, I think it matters right now that Barre has this committee. Because there are folks who don't want us. They don't believe that we should be here. So I think that's important. Just not even to do anything per se, but just that we're here and we're discussing these issues, and they're our concerned citizens. So I think that we should be mindful of that. I'm not saying we shouldn't do anything, but just the fact that we exist alone is pretty important.
Thanks, Chris.
Sonia, in regards to your question, I'll kind of expand upon it a little bit. So there's committees there's other types of committees, and then there's statutory or legal. So like the planning commission, like Sam was talking about, or development review board. And even when we had a housing board of review, those all have legal authority. So they can make decisions on legal issues. Then there's committees that are charged by the council. So this committee is charged by the council. The cow pasture is charged by the council. Then we have, I guess, more internal. They're external residents on the committees, but like the rec committee, the civic center committee, those committees, all committees are basically advisory, but they make recommendations to department heads and to the city manager on issues. So like civic center committee makes recommendations to the facilities department, and it's all about how to better utilize our facilities. And then he'll take that information, work with it, bring it to the city manager. The rec committee does the same thing. I completely understand what everybody is saying because we had an ADA committee. We had some really good people on it with disabilities, and they had a charge, but they weren't receiving enough support from people that should be supporting them, and it just kind of fell apart. And so I think, like Sam was saying, moving forward, it's imperative that these committees have a good charge, they have a good idea of what the intentions are and where that reporting or advisory goes back up. We have Transportation Advisory Committee reports to Public Works. And it's all about, 5 stop signs on a 4-way street. They're constantly talking about how do we better create traffic flow or bike lanes and things like that. So it just depends on the committee and kind of who they're advising. Police advisory advises the police chief. So, and those committees are made up, all of residents, or some of them have counselors on them. So it's kind of all over the place.
Thanks, Rick.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks.
That's quite a variety of answers, but it's true. I mean, there's obviously different things. And in a community like ours that really relies a lot on volunteers in terms of its municipal management, I think creating better channels of communication as well as better understanding about what committees do, and then liaison between the committees and the city, certainly we would benefit from improving those processes, which we're obviously a part of. So yeah, let's keep going. Okay, anyone else want to weigh in on this? Or
I just wanted to formally apologize to you, Joellen, Emily, Sonia, Sue, who's not in this meeting, but the last Let's Talk meeting, that completely got lost in the mix when they rescheduled the city hall holiday party because of the flooding in December. And I actually was home with a sick daughter that night, and it absolutely, I've talked to both the police chief and the public works director. It had nothing to do with what was going on in the committee. It just got lost in the mix with the rescheduled holiday party, and then everybody just kind of got squirreled up with the flooding and the potential flooding in December again in January, and everybody was just lost. But I wanted to formally apologize to you folks because it may have come across in a way that it was definitely not intended to do. It just got all messed up. So I'm sorry for that.
just so you know, Rick, I've been talking with Christy about maybe a way that we can kind of have a closure of that group, call us back together again for maybe an hour or so, and just have a kind of closing. I'm not sure that that's manageable, but let's see if that can happen, because
I think it would be good. I know I was getting a lot of information out of that group. I was learning a lot. And so I thought it was really valuable. And, you know, there was some things that, you know, people could say that you live here and you know, you see it and you don't see it. And there's definitely things I don't see. You know, my boss is female and I admire her. She's amazing. The stuff that she can do and the thought process she has, but not everybody thinks that way. And I didn't really come to light that not everybody thinks like me until we had our meetings. So thank you guys.
You're welcome. Keith, just to give you, so you're not in the dark here, we had the help from Christy Clemens, who is the Title IX director at Dartmouth College. Title IX is the law about fair and impartial service to the students, I guess, or the community. Anyway, she created a curriculum, a conversation curriculum called Let's Talk About Justice, Equity, Diversity, Inclusion, and Belonging. And it's basically a series of workshops, little workshops around how to talk about difficult topics. So, so that's what Rick is referring to, was the last session of that particular workshop. Okay, so are we cooked?
I thought it was a great discussion.
Me too. Thanks so much, everyone. This will be really good for the future, and I will definitely get the notes out to you about this. It's Emily. It has nothing to do with minutes. It's just a way to send the statement to the cohort program. Okay. Am I looking for an adjournment request?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Thanks, everyone. See you next time. Hopefully, I'll get the date right.
Good night.
Have a
night.
great
Good
night,
night.
guys.
Good night.
Bye.
Everybody.